Paley's argument is based on his observation of the world, so it's a posteriori and inductive, a probability argument and not a proof. It's based on three main sets of observations: the complexity of the biological world, the eye and the laws of nature are generally, the regularity of the orbits of the heavenly bodies and of the seasons of the year, the purpose of a designer, God, seen in this complexity and purpose. Paley argues inductively from what we can see in the world, the appearance of design, back to the supposed cause, God. Paley's argument is based on the analogy between the properties of a watch and the properties of the universe. He begins with the observation of a stone and then a watch. A watch has complex parts put together for a purpose, so it must have been designed by a watchmaker. Similarly, the universe has parts that function together for a purpose, so the universe must have been designed by a universe maker. The design of the watch is far more wonderful than that of a watch, so its designer is far greater than any human. Its designer is God. Just as apparent flaws in a watch and any ignorance we may have about watches do not destroy the inference of a designer/watchmaker, our lack of knowledge about the universe does not destroy our inference that it was designed. Paley supports his arguments by referring to the perfect design of an eye for vision and to the perfect adaptation of animals such as fish and birds to their environment. Design is also seen in the perfect regularity of orbits of the heavenly bodies. Hume's critique of design arguments. Firstly, avoid these common errors. The error of thinking that Hume was commenting specifically on Paley's design argument. The error of assuming that Paley has not read Hume's dialogues. The error of giving a parrot recital of Hume's comments. Hume's critique. The cause of design in the universe needs only to be proportional to its effect. Even if we grant that the universe was designed, there is no evidence that this was the God of Christian theism. A lesser being could have designed the universe. The existence of evil and imperfection in the world suggests, at best, a limited designer. Analogies between the universe and machines are flawed. The world is more like a vegetable, and vegetables design and produce themselves. Any analogy between the designers of human machines and the designer of the universe is anthropomorphism. The universe could have developed into a comparatively ordered state simply by chance. Strengths and weaknesses of Paley's design argument. Weaknesses. Hume seems to be right that the all-powerful God of Christian theism is a greater cause than is needed to account for the appearance of the design in the universe. There's too much evil in the world to see as it's the design of an all-loving/powerful God. Hume's comment that the universe is more like a vegetable than a machine is backed up by Darwin's theory of evolution. Nature appears to design itself without the need for God. As Hume says, we have no experience of universe making, so our ideas about it are anthropomorphic and limited. Moreover, if nature can design itself, Hume is probably right in claiming that the universe is now in an ordered state purely by chance. Strengths. Paley may be right to argue that the designer is the all-powerful Christian God and not Hume's lesser gods, because, as Swinburne says, God is probably the simplest explanation for the appearance of design in the universe. Paley argued that evil may be unavoidable in order for God to bring about good. Modern arguments support Paley here. For example, the free will defense, process theology, and Hick's Iranian theodicy. Paley is right to see God as the designer of nature. Swinburne argues that evolution simply obeys the laws of science designed by God. Paley's language is anthropomorphic, but his conclusion that the designer is metaphysical and transcendent seems reasonable. Moreover, we know enough about design to show that Paley could be right. Paley's argument that nature shows purpose and design is supported by the fine-tuning argument and the anthropic principle. Although if it turns out that there is a multiverse, that argument does not work. Paley's argument is good because it is based on induction, what we observe, and what we do observe, the appearance of design. The status of Paley's argument as a proof. Proof can mean sufficient evidence for proposition, as in proof of guilt. Proof can be inductive, and inductive proof can have scientific status, true in all known circumstances, such as water boils at 100 degrees at sea level. But Paley's argument amounts rather to a reasonable inductive probability. Paley's argument can be seen at best explanation of order what we see, so it is still a powerful argument. Some hold that proof can only come through the certainty that people find in faith. For example, in religious experience, although this is a proof only to the one who has experience and the faith. Proof can also be deductive, as in Anselm's ontological argument. Paley's argument is inductive, so however probable it can never amount to a deductive, logically certain proof. The relationship between reason and faith. Some see faith in God as unreasonable, holding the truth that is scientific/empirical. However, the belief that God exists is a reasonable hypothesis based on evidence, such as our observation of the universe and its appearance of order and design. For others, only faith gives certainty. However, fideism itself can be seen as justifying absurd beliefs, such as in Linus's belief in the Great Pumpkin. H. Price distinguishes between belief that God exists and belief in God. Belief in God is evaluative, interested, and disinterested, whereas belief in God exists is nothing more than the acceptance of an existential proposition: there is a God. Belief in God is the most distinctive thing about religion, and is what we mean by faith. Belief that God exists is reasonable, but reason does not take us as far as faith. Pope John Paul II argues that truth can be known only through a combination of faith and reason. Excluding or minimizing the importance of either one reduces our ability to understand truth. The value of Paley's design argument for religious faith. It supports faith by reasoning, which matches Pope John Paul II's argument that faith and reason should be mutually supportive and not exclusive. It forms a reasonable defense of religious faith against atheism, which has no more evidence for the non-existence of God than Paley has for God's existence. Paley's argument, in effect, is reasonable scientific hypothesis, a reasonable interpretation of evidence what we see around us. However, some insist that Paley's argument offers no support to faith, since for fideists, faith does not depend on reason or proof. H. Price's distinction between belief in and belief that can be used to support Paley. Paley's use of natural theology supports belief that God designed the universe, and Paley comments about the wonder of design promote belief in God as the designer. At the end of this discussion, we are left with the issue of what kind of God we are left with. Does the nature of evil show that the designer cannot be all-loving? Could Christian belief cope with the view of process theology, that God is not all-powerful? Could Christian belief cope with the deistic view that the designer has left us to our own free devices?